Watching the sad events currently unfolding and underway in the United Kingdom, one could be forgiven for thinking we'd descended into the dystopian world so long predicted in the classic literature. George Orwell's book, 1984, is just one warning, which ironically appears to have become an instruction manual for the political left. An interview with George Orwell was recently surfaced, in which Orwell thought there was a possibility 1984 could happen in the UK. He was right, again. Orwell's description of what looks like the UK under Labour's Keir Starmer reads as follows, quote, "In our world there will be no emotions except fear, anger, rage and self-debasement. There will be no loyalty except to the party, but always there will be the intoxication of power. Always at every moment there will be the thrill of victory, the sensation of trampling on an enemy who is helpless. If you want a picture of the future, imagine a boot stamping on a human face forever. The moral to be drawn from this nightmare situation is not to let it happen." That's the end of the quote. One Nation are doing everything we can to prevent this nightmare overtaking Australia. Sadly, the globalists, Liberals, Labor, Greens, Nationals and Teals intend to push ahead into hell. Another futuristic essay written in 1961, titled Harrison Bergeron, from American science fiction writer Kurt Vonnegut, predicted a future where human behaviour was controlled, physical movement and appearance and thought. High IQ citizens were punished with earpieces that played loud sounds every 30 seconds to prevent them from thinking, so they did not outshine low IQ people. The strong were literally weighted down with ball bearings to reduce their strength to that of the worst weakling. The attractive were forced to wear ugly masks, so nobody was made to feel uncomfortable gazing upon someone more attractive than themselves. A quote to explain his prediction, which is often incorrectly attributed to Dostoevsky, simply reads, quote, "Tolerance will reach such a level that intelligent people will be banned from thinking so as not to offend the imbeciles," end of quote. Vonnegut's view was mirrored in an interview described to me with a former resident of the Soviet Union, which consisted of the fellow drawing 3 stick figures on a piece of paper, 2 at the same height and 1 taller, then saying, quote, in the Soviet Union, everyone is equal," before taking his pencil and drawing a line across the top of the 2 smaller figures, thereby severing the head of the third. "Such is life in the Soviet Union," he said. Keir Starmer's communism is the victory of those who have lost their humanity, their morality, their faith. Or, as Orwell describes them, those who delight in the thrill of the kill. Perhaps UK citizens would agree it's time to add a footnote to the famous quote from Descartes, "I think, therefore I am," arrested. Just like a young man in Belfast recently who was arrested for observing a protest, only to have Judge Rafferty in the Belfast District Court decide that someone's presence, including as a curious observer, at a disorder involves them in such disorder as to justify the refusal of bail. And off to jail he went. That young man had never been in trouble with the police before and had even left when the event became violent. There's no provision in common or statute law that reads, "Injustice is allowed if it exists to make an example of one to intimidate others into disobedience." Yet here we are. Similar behaviour was observed in Australia during COVID. The conversation around events in the UK has so far missed an important element. The United Kingdom has been here before. Former Queensland Premier Campbell Newman reminded the internet last week of the Aeropagitica, which carries the full title of A Speech of Mr John Milton for the Liberty of Unlicensed Printing to the Parliament of England. This was a pamphlet published in 1644 to protest a parliamentary order the previous year requiring government approval and licensing of all published works and pamphlets. This measure was introduced after Milton's treatise in favour of divorce upset the King, Charles I. History appears to be repeating. The Uniparty's Misinformation, Disinformation, Censorship Bill. In Aeropagitica, Milton defends the free circulation of ideas as essential to moral and intellectual development. Furthermore, he asserts to attempt to preclude falsehood is to underestimate the power of truth. A lesson for our E-Safety Commissioner, who clearly believes the reverse is true. While the immediate objective of the Aeropagitica, repeal of licensing, was not obtained for another 50 years, the tract has earned a permanent place in the literature of human rights. Repeal took 50 years because, as it turned out, Each new government kept that power in order to protect themselves from criticism. Power freely given is never freely surrendered. Here we are, 380 years later, and Australia is making exactly the same mistake. Well, One Nation isn't. The rest of the parties in this place are. Keir Starmer famously took the knee during Black Lives Matter riots and now puts English Lives Matter demonstrators on their knees. The spark for this trouble was the murder of 3 young girls at the hands of a suspected Islamic terrorist. If you want to look for the cause of the frustration being demonstrated amongst everyday Brits, look no further than a failure to keep the public safe. It's basic. Fear used as a weapon of control during COVID has bitten the hand that created it. There's an opportunity cost to arresting citizens for thought crimes like praying in public, watching but not participating in a protest, making posts on social media critical of the government, posts which do not incite violence or incite the breaking of a law, posting up first-hand stories of vaccine harm, and, of course, criticising the religion that can't be criticised using nothing but their own words. As a closing remark, let me make it clear, there's no excuse for violence on either side of a protest. No excuse. Equally, the actions of a few do not justify the removal of rights from the many. The actions of the few do not justify the removal of rights from the many. Human rights are universal, part of being human, inherent in each and all of us, from birth.